Hey guys, welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, and create that infinity. Up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah Frizzell, and if you're tuning in, thank you for joining. Today we'll talk about an interesting concept, being a good person and what it means, how you define it, but also being able to say no and still being just that. So let's just jump right into it. Hey guys, so if you're just tuning in, today we're going to talk about being a good person, but also being able to say no. Doing for you and making sure your own oxygen mask is on, etc. Now, this conversation I've had in my head 1,004 times, but also, I've talked about with other people. Just recently I was talking with my mom, and when we talk, we get deep. We keep it light, but we hit some major points, and I always feel like when I walk away from any conversation with her, it's like I just found a new secret on life. And the truth is, you don't have to be walked on or taken advantage of to be a good person. I'm learning. It's all about your intentions. It's all about how you leave your day, how you leave to start your day, and how you intend to treat others, regardless of the situation, regardless of what's at stake, regardless of opportunities, circumstances. Your goal, or naturally, not even a conscious thought, but just how you operate and how you treat people usually determines what kind of person you are. In my experience, you meet others who are just willing to do things just because they're able to. Sometimes you meet people who are, they do things because they expect something in return. And it's such a tricky balance. But I personally, for the longest time, I ran into the situation of, if I said no or if I didn't do something, then that means I was a bad person, or someone or a group wouldn't like me or would think that I'm horrible or these things. And I started to change my way of thinking in the sense of, how do I feel at the end of the day when I do certain things? How does it make me feel? What am I compromising to do something for someone else? And the truth is, a lot of times we become kind of a martyr just because we want to make sure that other people are taken care of. And in process, those people are already taking care of themselves. So there's this middle ground between selflessness and selfishness. And even selfishness, I'm relearning that whole definition and what it means, and that it doesn't always mean that you're this greedy monster that's willing to take any and everything from anyone or a situation. No, sometimes being selfish just means you saying no to a particular situation, particular group activity, because you want to take care of yourself and you want to preserve yourself. Sometimes you have to say no and do it. It may not feel good initially, but it's worth it. There may be some guilt attached, especially if you're acclimated to constantly saying yes all the time. Being a yes man does not make you a good person, especially to yourself. How can you be good to someone else and you are the biggest perpetrator to yourself? And I'm guilty of that. How can I consider myself a truly good person if I'm not being truly good to myself? And sometimes I say to myself, I'm like, you know what? If my inner self could detach from me, it probably won't want to be friends with me, just because it's like, no, you're not treating yourself well. You're making it a point to treat others well, but you're not treating yourself well. And it's such a, I feel like it's such a thing that we wrestle with, and the fear of being disliked, and the fear of being misconstrued as someone that you're not. And the truth is, it happens. Everyone comes to a situation or walks around in their daily lives with a different perception, different interpretation of how things work and how things go, or even how people are. But all I can say is the best tool I have is just my intentions at the end of the day. And at the beginning of the day, my intentions. And, no one can take that away from me. And, I was recently in a situation where someone kind of scolded me a little bit for taking care of myself, whether or not they knew what I was, dealing with or, juggling. They felt the need to kind of lash out and, put their personal feelings and personal perspective into a situation that had nothing to do with them. And that happens a lot. We're people, so obviously we naturally personalize any situation that we're in, whether it be directly or indirectly. And it bothered me at first because I was like, whoa, I didn't mean to hurt anybody, or how did I hurt this person if I didn't do anything to them? And I had to sit back for a second and say, you know what, there's no platform or no rhyme or reason for you to apologize if you didn't do anything wrong other than take care of yourself. Self-preservation, putting on your own oxygen mask. And, sometimes that simply just involves you coming home and just, disconnecting. Coming home just to rest, coming home just to catch up on, things that you haven't caught up on. And the conversation I had with my mom recently, we were talking about, how some people feel entitled to the things that you work for, and they overlook what you've put out, how hard you had to work to get to where you are. And, in spite of all those things, they feel that you should be very charitable with your efforts, very charitable with the things that you've gained and accomplished, because they're not where you are. Regardless of how they treated you up until this point, they still feel entitled, and they think that you should feel obligated to take care of them. And, when we talked, it was great because she's my mom, so I take a lot of her wisdom, and I just mentally, just download it. And, we were talking about it because I know how hard she works, and, how much time she's put in to accomplish, the things that she has and where she is. And, to hear her, say it out loud, in my head, all I kept saying was that, you know what? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Take care of yourself. You've had to for quite some time, and you didn't necessarily have the resources there or other people there to help you. You had to do it on your own. So for someone who may not have treated you the best, comes along and decides that, oh yeah, well, you're in a good situation. You should be able to help me out. And whether it's blood, whether it's, a stranger, or not even a stranger, whether it's blood or a close friend, family friend, whatever the case may be, sometimes we get caught in this loop where our hearts kind of want to take care of everybody and take care of people and take people in. But that's not always the best solution. You doing a good deed doesn't necessarily fix the problem for that person. Yes, it's a good gesture. Yes, it's good intentions. But sometimes if you run the risk of compromising yourself, then it's not worth it. But you can still walk away and say that you're a good person. And yeah, that's it's something that I wrestle with, but I'm still grasping as far as the concept is being able to say no, being able to take care of myself, but still being a good person, regardless of what someone else says. My intentions are everything, and my intentions will, I guess, dictate what kind of individual I am at the end of the day, regardless of an individual's perspective or interpretation or opinion. I also talked with my buddy recently about intentions and, worrying about what people would think of you based on what someone else said about you. And people talk, and that's okay. Sometimes you got to let them talk. But make it hard for them to discredit who you are, discredit who you've been to them. Just make it difficult for someone else to really sabotage your integrity and sabotage the person you work at being. And do that just by being who you are, being consistent. It's a lot easier to label someone in a negative way when their actions are inconsistent with who they are, who they claim to be. And sometimes it comes from our own camp. When someone we are hoping would see who we are, just based on one situation, they change and they decide to tarnish us in the process. And all I can say is you can't control other people. All you can do is control who you are and control how you navigate in the world. So sometimes if someone wants to label you as a bad person or say you're this or say you're that, make them work hard to prove it just by being yourself. So all this is to say, to be a good person, have good intentions. Being a doormat does not make you a good person. Being a doormat just means you want to be a people pleaser. And that, in turn, I feel builds resentment. You start to walk around with a bitterness. You just navigate the world a little bit darker. And this is coming from personal experience. You start to feel, it's taken advantage of, and a little skeptical of people and situations, and just always feeling like there's something around the corner waiting for you to sabotage you, and that's not a good way to be. And to break that cycle, sometimes you just gotta say no. I'm taking care of myself, and be okay with that. Because whoever says that you're a horrible person for taking care of yourself in a healthy way, taking care of yourself in the sense that you don't compromise someone else, or you're not hurting someone else by taking care of yourself, no one has anything to say when it comes to that, because we all do it. So take that little bit of wisdom with you today. In any situation you come up against where it doesn't feel conducive to your well-being, say no and see how it feels. It might not feel good at first, but you'll thank yourself later. That's all I got for you today, guys. Continue to stay elevated. Go out into the world and just be light. Be what you seek. Take flight, guys.